Hello, and welcome to my presentation on teaching expository text structures to improve reading comprehension. My name's Marie. This presentation focuses on expository texts, or texts that provide the reader with information. Research has shown that reading and comprehending expository texts is more difficult than reading narrative texts. Showing care to how we engage students in these texts is critical. So what is text structure? Text structure is how the author organizes information. There are 5 major text structures that we will be using throughout this presentation: compare and contrast, problem and solution, cause and effect, sequence, and description. Readers, just like authors, use text structure to organize their own understanding of the texts. There are benefits to teaching students text structure. It helps the reader to follow the organization of the text and the ideas that the author wants to emphasize. It increases student learning and thinking, and it helps students organize their own writing. Writing includes summaries, recalls, and essays. The research base for this presentation is as follows. The first article that I used was by Oteba et al., and in 2018, they conducted a research study on students from kindergarten to 2nd grade with comprehension skills that were at or below grade level. These students then participated in an intervention that focused on text structures of expository texts. Hall et al. 2005 studied the impact of teaching text structure strategies with expository texts in small groups. This study focused on 2nd graders in a suburban setting. Meyer and Ray in 2011 reviewed text structure research, early text structure interventions, and current text structure interventions across several studies and across all age groups. While the studies have spanned across several age groups, I am coming at this presentation with the lens of an elementary school educator. However, the research does show us that text structure instruction is beneficial at all ages. So let's dive a little bit deeper into what each research article tells us. Oteba et al. Showed that after receiving intervention that targeted one text structure, students showed improvement on texts with that structure, but also improved on texts with structures that were not targeted. The most gains were from texts with sequencing, and the smallest gains were from texts with the compare and contrast structure. They also found that oral language, listening comprehension, and passage comprehension also improved. Hall et al. Found that students in the text structure group showed more gains than students in the comparison groups who were learning traditional strategies such as vocabulary and background knowledge, or compared to the group that did not learn any strategies. Students improved in structure strategies through using signal words and graphic organizers. They also improved their conceptual understanding and their ability to write well-structured summaries. Students across all 3 groups, however, did not differ in their ability to show transfer. And the final research article by Meyer and Ray found that students improved reading comprehension and vocabulary after receiving intervention. Instructions on structure strategies improved the organization and the quality of student recalls, and students improved on their production of main ideas and summaries. To summarize, this is what the research would look like in action. Teaching students text structures and how to use them will help students comprehend a text. Students use the way the author structures a text to organize their own thinking, and the organization of the text also helps with memory and recall. Readers construct knowledge by integrating pre-existing knowledge and building relationships among parts of the text. Using text structure helps see how parts of the text are related. So on the next few slides, we're going to go through visuals and different tools for each structure, and then I will go over implementation and recommendations. So to start with our first 5 structures, we have the descriptive structure. In this structure, a topic is described through different characteristics, features, or examples. A graphic organizer for this would include a topic web as shown above. Signal words include for example, also, such as, to illustrate, for instance, or characteristics of. The second structure is sequence. This is when details are presented in order and can be chronologically organized by date. It would be helpful to give students graphic organizers that show the flow of steps or put the dates in order, such as a timeline. Signal words include first, second, third, next, last, before, after, finally, and dates. Compare and contrast is when 2 or more topics are discussed, showing how they are similar and how they are different. A Venn diagram showing topic A, topic B, and then how they are the same in the middle will help students. Signal words include difference, different from, same as, on the other hand, and in contrast. The problem and solution structure is when a problem or question is presented with a solution or answer. A graphic organizer that shows problem leading to solution is helpful. Signal words include problem, trouble, difficulty, puzzle, threat, solution, to satisfy, in response, recommend, or suggest. And finally, the cause and effect structure is when an event causes or leads to something else to occur. Here, the graphic organizer just is a way to show something happens and it leads to something else. Signal words include cause, because, since, as a result of, due to, effect, affect, and consequence. It's helpful to have visuals for students, so on this last panel, I have all 5 shown so that students can see the flow of each and how they are different. How can we use those visuals and signal words in our implementation? Here are the major steps and recommendations from the research. The first part is to make sure you are using texts that demonstrate the structure you are targeting. Authors can have complex writing in our expository texts, so making sure you are intentional about the text you are using to demonstrate each structure is important. This helps increase familiarity of the structure, and it helps strengthen students' mental representation of that structure. You'll see in the example I have a structure with the life cycle of plants, and it is clearly organized through the sequence structure. The next step is to teach signal words. The signal words that were on the last few slides help the reader cue the text structure. Now you have to work with your students because sometimes they will see these words, but they're not always meant to be signals. So a discussion of how those words are used in the text is important. And signal words help signal or show how information within the text is related. So you'll see in the example above, there are signal words highlighted such as problem, solution, issue, suggestion. So you can see in this text there's a flow with a problem, solution, problem, solution. Lastly, the research shows us that using graphic organizers is incredibly beneficial to our students. It can be a simple graphic organizer like I showed on the previous slides. It can have more space for more complex or detailed texts, but graphic organizers help reduce memory demands, and it also helps students visualize relationships. So in this graphic organizer, we have the cause, then we have an arrow pointing to the effect that happens. Here is an example of a lesson outline that incorporates the recommendations from the research. Step 1 would be to determine the structure you are going to teach and target, and make sure you choose a text that clearly demonstrates the structure. Step 2 would be to introduce key vocabulary. Familiarize students with what they will be learning about. Step 3 is to teach the signal words for the targeted structure. Some words may be familiar to students, some words may be new to students and might need to be reviewed. Step 4, preview the text, highlighting the signal words. Step 5, read the text, stopping to discuss signal words as they appear and their meaning. So for example, when they see the word issue, what structure is that signaling? Does issue prompt a problem or the solution? Step 6, use the graphic organizer to recall the important information from the text and organize the information into their writing with the graphic organizer. And step 7 is to assess student understanding, and we'll talk about some ways to do that in the next few slides. Here are some other recommendations for implementation. Increase text complexity as students improve their skills in using the strategies. So when you are starting instruction on text structure, you are choosing texts that clearly demonstrate the targeted structure. As students become more familiar, you can pull in more complex texts that maybe have signal words in them that are not meant to be signal words, that will make the students form a deeper analysis of what they're reading. Incorporate domain-specific texts. This will help improve general comprehension and domain-specific knowledge. This instruction is not meant to be isolated. It is meant to be used while students are learning other topics through their science or social studies curriculum. They can learn their content alongside of their text structure strategies. And lastly, it is important to incorporate writing. Students can write summaries, they can do note-taking, especially on their graphic organizers, or they can use what they've learned and respond to the text. So give students a prompt where they have to respond and pull the relevant information from the text. Hal et al., Meyer and Ray both noted that summaries improved, so a written summary of a text could be used as a writing assessment, as we talked about in the last slide, to see if students can pull key details from the text. Oakhill et al. Also noted that assessments help students activate their knowledge of the way an author structures texts, and providing 2-sentence stimulus passages that require students to choose additional sentences that would fit into the paragraph will show if they can make a choice that appropriately matches the structure of the text. So those are two examples of summative assessments that can be used for learning. If you are looking for more of a formative assessment, you can use the text structure graphic organizers to see if students are able to identify key information and ideas in texts. So they can start the graphic organizer in their whole group lesson or their small group lesson with you and see if they can continue through part of the graphic organizer on their own. You also could give them a short passage that is new using the same structure with a new graphic organizer to quickly see if they're able to pull out the important details from the text. Here are the references that I used for my presentation. The first three are the research articles that were peer-reviewed that helped form the recommendations for this presentation. I also used the Oak Hill et al. Text from 2015, Understanding and Teaching Reading Comprehension, a handbook. And then additional resources. There are several articles on reading rockets that cover text structure. One that I found particularly helpful was titled Reading and Scaffolding Expository Texts. Thank you for listening to my presentation, and I hope you learned something about teaching text structure.